The human survived the impossible, with only the princess by his side. The stars, usually a comforting guide in the darkness, now seemed distant and cold, indifferent to the life clinging desperately to a failing vessel. Jalen's hands moved with precision over the control panel, trying every emergency override he knew, but the ship groaned under forces beyond his understanding. Space was unforgiving, and he was learning that lesson at its cruelest. Outside, the planet loomed, a jagged alien world with swirling storms and landscapes that shifted unnaturally, as if the surface itself had a mind. The sensors read chaos, gravity anomalies, electrical disturbances, and radiation pockets that could fry a human body in seconds. Jalen knew he had no choice. The ship wouldn't survive the next minute in orbit. He had to attempt a landing. The descent was a blur of flashing lights, sparks, and screaming metal. When the ship finally struck the ground, it skidded across jagged rocks before coming to an abrupt halt, leaving a cloud of dust and smoke. Jalen sat for a moment, chest heaving, heart pounding, and ears ringing from the impact. He was alive. Against every odd, he had survived. But survival alone was only the beginning. The doors of the wrecked ship opened with a groan. Jalen stepped out, immediately hit by the alien atmosphere. The sky was a murky green, streaked with orange clouds that roiled and twisted above him. The air smelled sharp, metallic, and unfamiliar. Every instinct screamed caution. His first thought was simple and clear: find shelter. He surveyed the rocky terrain. Towering cliffs jutted from the ground, forming jagged silhouettes in the stormy light. In the distance, he could see caves carved into the cliffs, natural shelters that might protect him from the planet's violent weather. But before he could move, a movement caught his eye. Something human-shaped, slumped, and barely conscious, lay among the wreckage of another ship nearby. Jalen rushed over, adrenaline pushing him forward. As he drew closer, he saw the figure clearly. It was a woman, her uniform torn, dirt smeared across her face, and eyes wide with fear and confusion. She was young, barely older than 20, but there was a quiet strength in the way she tried to sit up. "Princess Leora," Jalen said gently, recognizing the royal insignia on her uniform. "Are you hurt?" Her eyes flickered with a mix of fear and recognition. I don't know, my ship, it's gone," she whispered. Her voice was soft but steady, carrying a dignity that seemed innate. She tried to rise, but her legs buckled beneath her. Jalen lifted her carefully. "You're safe now," he said, scanning the horizon. "But we need to move. This planet isn't kind to anyone." Together, they stumbled toward the nearest cliff, the storm winds threatening to throw them off balance. The moment they reached the mouth of the cave, Jalen collapsed to his knees, exhausted from the landing, the run, and the adrenaline. Leora, surprisingly resilient, leaned against the rock, catching her breath. The cave offered some shelter from the wind and lightning that flashed violently across the sky. The temperature was slightly warmer inside, though not by much. Jalen inspected their surroundings, noting that the cave walls were smooth, with veins of strange minerals that shimmered faintly in the dim light. It wasn't much, but it would protect them from the immediate danger of the storm. "Do you have any supplies?" Leora asked, her eyes scanning Jalen for answers. She spoke with authority even in her weakened state, and Jalen respected that. "I have a few things from my ship," he said. "Rations, water, packs, some tools." "Not much, but it will keep us alive for a while," Leora nodded. "Then we start there, survival first." For hours, Jalen and Leora worked together to create a temporary camp inside the cave. They salvaged what they could from the wreckage: energy rations, portable water containers, and a small medical kit. Leora proved to be surprisingly resourceful. She had learned some survival skills in her royal training, enough to handle basic first aid and ration management. Jalen watched her carefully, impressed by her quick thinking under pressure. Night fell quickly on the alien world, bringing with it an oppressive darkness. The wind howled outside, and the cave seemed to shrink around them. Jalen lit a small emergency lantern, its glow casting long shadows against the walls. He could hear the sounds of the planet's wildlife beyond the cave entrance: distant screeches, heavy footsteps, and something that sounded like grinding rocks moving without reason. The planet was alive, and it was watching. Leora shivered and pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders. "Do you think anyone will find us?" she asked quietly. Jalen shook his head. "Not anytime soon. This place is uncharted." "Even if they knew we were here, reaching us would take weeks, maybe months." He paused, then met her gaze. But we have each other, and we'll survive because humans always find a way. Her lips curved into a small, appreciative smile. There was a warmth in her eyes, a flicker of hope that mirrored his own. Despite the alien dangers, despite the storms and predators, they were not alone. The first night was tense. Every noise outside made them flinch, every shadow seemed to hide a predator. Jalen kept watch in shifts, listening, watching, ready to respond. He had been trained for emergencies, for combat, for survival in hostile conditions, but this world challenged everything he thought he knew. The physics, the flora, even the gravity seemed slightly off, testing his instincts at every step. Morning brought no relief. The storm had lessened, but the terrain was still treacherous. They had to find water and more secure shelter, and that meant leaving the cave. Jalen led the way, moving carefully across jagged rocks and loose soil. Leora followed, her steps light but sure. She was learning quickly, picking up on his methods, asking questions, and offering solutions of her own. Together, they formed a team, two humans relying on wit and courage rather than technology or weapons. During their exploration, they discovered small streams of liquid that shimmered unnaturally in the dim sunlight. Jalen tested it carefully before offering it to Leora. It was drinkable, though the taste was metallic and bitter. They rationed it, knowing that water would be their most valuable resource. As they moved deeper into the alien landscape, they noticed strange structures, remnants of a civilization long gone. Towers of metal and glass lay in ruins, partially buried in the earth. Some were broken beyond recognition, while others retained strange, functional energy sources that hummed faintly. Jalen examined them carefully, hoping to find tools or supplies they could use. Leora explored alongside him, her curiosity as keen as his own. "Humans didn't build this," she said softly, tracing a pattern on a metallic wall. "The architecture, it's not ours, but it's impressive," Jalen nodded, "and dangerous. Anything left behind might not be friendly." He adjusted his grip on a makeshift staff he had fashioned from ship debris. "But we'll take what we need and leave nothing to chance." As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows, they found a partially intact structure that could serve as a longer-term shelter. It had walls strong enough to protect against storms and predators, and a small energy core that might still hold power. Exhausted but determined, they set up camp inside. That night, as they sat beside the faint hum of the energy core, they spoke of their lives, of Earth, of home. Leora shared stories of her kingdom, of the people she loved, and the responsibilities she carried. Jalen spoke of his missions, of humanity's reach into space, and the challenges he had faced. Despite the alien environment, a sense of companionship grew between them, not romance, not yet, but a bond forged in survival, trust, and mutual respect. Outside, the night was alive with sounds they could not identify. But inside, they found a moment of safety, a brief reprieve from the chaos of the planet. And as they drifted into uneasy sleep, Jalen knew one thing clearly: survival was only the beginning. The planet would challenge them at every step, but together they could endure. Humanity had survived the impossible before, and against all odds, they would do it again. The stars shone cold and distant above, but for the first time since the crash, Jalen felt a spark of hope. With Princess Leora by his side, he was no longer just a survivor, he was part of something greater. Something that would defy the odds, something that might even triumph. The morning light on the alien world was faint, filtered through the greenish sky that still churned with distant storms. Jalen Core woke first, listening to the soft hum of the energy core in the structure they had taken shelter in. The cave outside was quiet, but he knew better than to trust the silence. Every moment of calm could hide dangers beyond imagination. Leora stirred, blinking sleep from her eyes. "Is it safe outside?" she asked, voice small but steady. "For now," Jalen said, brushing the dust from his uniform. "But we need to move, we can't stay here forever. We have to find more food, better water, and figure out a way to get off this planet." She nodded, standing carefully. "Lead the way, I'll follow." Her determination impressed him. She wasn't just a princess trapped on a strange planet. She was quick to adapt, ready to survive. They moved cautiously through the rocky terrain, the ground uneven and sharp beneath their boots. Strange plants stretched toward the sky, some with leaves like glass, others glowing faintly, pulsing with light as if they had a heartbeat. Jalen examined them carefully. Some were safe to touch, others reacted violently, curling and snapping when he got too close. Leora watched his movements and mimicked his caution, learning quickly. Hours passed as they explored, and the planet revealed its first true challenge. A deep ravine cut across their path, too wide to jump and too steep to climb. Below, shadows shifted unnaturally. Jalen could see long, spindly shapes moving through the mist, creatures with legs like stilts, their heads small but glowing faintly. They made no sound, but their eyes seemed to watch every movement. Jalen crouched behind a boulder. "We'll need to be careful," he whispered. "Those things, they hunt in silence. Humans haven't encountered predators like this before." Leora leaned close. "Then how do we get across?" Jalen studied the ravine. There were narrow ledges along the sides, jagged rocks that could serve as stepping points. It would be risky, but he had no choice. "Follow my lead," he said. "Step where I step, don't make noise, and trust your instincts." They began crossing, every step a test of balance and nerves. The creatures below shifted as if sensing movement, their glowing eyes scanning the cliffs. Jalen felt his pulse quicken, knowing that one mistake could mean death. Leora moved with surprising grace, her eyes sharp, her body tense but controlled. Humans had an advantage: instinct, courage, and the ability to think quickly under pressure. Halfway across, a rock gave way beneath Jalen's foot. He grabbed a ledge instinctively, and the creatures below reacted immediately, their glowing eyes narrowing. Leora froze, watching him struggle. But Jalen's hands found purchase, and he pulled himself up, motioning for her to continue. The moment passed, and they moved faster, hearts pounding, until they reached solid ground on the other side. Breathing heavily, Leora smiled faintly. "You make it look easy." Jalen shook his head, laughing softly despite the tension. "Never easy, just human." They pressed onward, and as the day wore on, they found small pockets of water in shallow pools formed from rainfall. The liquid was strange, with a faint shimmer, but Jalen tested it carefully and confirmed it was safe to drink. They rationed it, knowing that water was scarce and precious on this world. As they rested beside the pools, they noticed faint structures in the distance. Towering spires, partially broken, scattered across the plains. Some appeared to be remnants of technology, metal and glass, humming with energy that flickered weakly. "Buildings?" Leora asked, squinting. "Or machines?" Jalen examined them. "Both maybe, but old, dangerous, could be useful but also could be traps." Curiosity won over caution, as it often did with humans. They approached slowly, and Jalen found that the structures were partially functional. Panels flickered to life, and a low hum filled the air. Leora touched one of the panels, her fingers dancing over symbols she didn't understand, but somehow the device responded. "Interesting," Jalen muttered. "Your instincts are good. Some of these systems respond to touch like they're alive." Hours passed as they explored the site. They found storage chambers with remnants of alien food, energy packs, and tools. Jalen carefully examined each item, determining what was safe. Leora assisted, using logic and curiosity to help him decide. Together, they gathered what they could carry, knowing it might sustain them for days. As evening approached, they set up a temporary camp near the alien structures. The hum of energy from the devices gave them light and a faint warmth. For the first time, they felt a small sense of safety, though both knew it was temporary. The planet was alive, and alive planets rarely forgave mistakes. Night came quickly, bringing with it sounds more frightening than any storm. Distant howls echoed through the plains, and unseen creatures moved just beyond the glow of their camp. Jalen kept watch, scanning for movement, listening for the slightest sound. Leora sat beside him, alert and tense, but also calm. She had learned quickly that fear slowed humans. Courage combined with intelligence allowed them to survive. Hours passed without incident, and finally exhaustion overtook vigilance. They slept, one keeping watch in shifts, each taking turns scanning the darkness. The next day brought a discovery that changed their plans. A small alien ship, partially buried in rubble, was visible from their camp. Its hull was damaged, but a faint energy signature indicated that some systems might still work. Jalen examined it carefully, analyzing the controls. "This could be our chance," he said, eyes shining. "If we can get it operational, we might signal for help, or at least travel somewhere safer." Leora studied the ship with equal intensity. "It's alien technology. I don't know if we can make it work. Humans are good at the impossible," Jalen said with a small grin. "We improvise, adapt, and survive. We'll figure it out." They spent the day clearing debris and examining the ship. The systems were unlike anything Jalen had encountered before. Symbols that didn't correspond to any human language, controls that reacted to touch and thought, and energy readings that fluctuated unpredictably. It was frustrating but fascinating. Leora proved invaluable. She had a sharp mind, able to see patterns in the alien technology that Jalen could not. Together, they worked through trial and error, pushing their understanding further than either could alone. The humans had no shortcuts, no guides, but they had creativity, patience, and determination, qualities the aliens seemed to underestimate. By late afternoon, they managed to power up some systems. The ship's hull lights flickered on, illuminating the surroundings with a soft blue glow. Panels hummed, doors slid open, and for a moment the impossible seemed within reach. But success brought new challenges. The activation of the ship triggered a response from the planet's wildlife. Shadows moved at the edges of their vision, and distant roars echoed through the plains. Creatures, attracted by the energy, were approaching. Jalen grabbed a makeshift weapon, fashioned from debris, while Leora activated part of the ship's defense systems. Together, they prepared to defend themselves. It was another test, another trial, and humans had faced worse. Their survival depended on quick thinking, coordination, and trust in each other. The creatures approached cautiously, curious but aggressive. Jalen and Leora used the environment to their advantage, luring the largest predator into a trap created from fallen rocks and energy pulses. The creature roared, confused and stunned, allowing them to escape to the ship. Inside, they sealed the doors and activated the ship's partial propulsion system. It shuddered, not fully functional but capable of moving short distances. Jalen smiled, exhausted but triumphant. Not perfect, but it's ours. We have a chance. Leora nodded, her eyes reflecting the glow of the panels. A small chance, but sometimes small is enough. As they prepared to move the ship, Jalen thought of home, of Earth, of everything humanity had survived before. They were humans, after all, adaptable, creative, brave. Against impossible odds, they had endured before, and they would endure again. The alien world was still dangerous, the creatures still roaming, the storms still brewing. But for the first time, they had a tool, a plan, and each other. The impossible no longer felt insurmountable. As the sun set, casting strange colors across the alien sky, Jalen and Leora looked at the horizon. They were alone, far from anyone who could help them, and yet they were not defeated. Together, they had survived the first trials. The planet had more challenges ahead, but humans had a way of surprising even the universe. And so, side by side, they prepared for the next step. Not just survival, but progress, exploration, and the unshakable belief that even in a hostile universe, humans could endure, adapt, and triumph. The stars above were cold, distant, and indifferent. But down on the alien plains, two humans moved forward, ready to face whatever came next, proving once again that humanity could survive the impossible. The alien ship creaked and hummed as Jalen Core and Princess Leora navigated its unfamiliar controls. The energy core they had managed to activate pulsed beneath their feet, sending waves of power through the hull. The ship was far from perfect, systems were partially damaged, navigation was erratic, and the propulsion could only handle short bursts, but it was theirs. It was enough. Outside, the planet's strange storms raged, whipping dust and debris across jagged plains. Shadows shifted in the distance, shapes moving faster than any human could track. Jalen kept his eyes on the readings, calculating every possibility. Leora hovered over a console, studying alien symbols that flickered across the panels. Despite the complexity, she was quick to grasp patterns, matching colors and sequences in ways Jalen could not anticipate. "This system is strange," she said. "It reacts to what we think, not just what we press." Jalen's eyebrows rose. "So the aliens made it sensitive, like it knows intent." "Exactly, but humans think differently," Leora replied, a faint smile on her lips. "We improvise, we find solutions they might never expect." Jalen grinned. It was true. That was humanity's strength. While the aliens relied on precision, coordination, and perfect predictability, humans thrived on adaptability and quick thinking. That unpredictability had saved them countless times. Their plan was simple but risky. They would move the ship a short distance to higher ground, closer to a ridge where they could observe the surrounding plains. From there, they hoped to find a safer route or perhaps detect signs of other survivors, ships, or resources. The first attempt was tense. The ship shuddered violently as the propulsion engaged, throwing sparks from damaged panels. Jalen adjusted the controls, sweating under the strain. Leora guided him, calling out readings faster than he could process. Together, they moved the vessel several kilometers, navigating jagged terrain and avoiding massive rock formations. They were halfway to their destination when a low, resonant sound filled the air, a warning, instinctively understood even without knowing its origin. Jalen froze. Outside the viewport, the plains were alive with movement. Dozens of alien creatures emerged from the shadows, drawn to the energy signature of the ship. Their glowing eyes pierced the dim light, bodies sleek but powerful, moving with terrifying speed. "They've found us," Jalen said quietly, gripping the console. "We need to think fast." Leora's fingers flew across the alien controls, activating what little defensive systems the ship had. A faint shield shimmered around the hull, though it would not hold against a direct attack. "We can't fight them," she said. "We have to outsmart them." Humans had never relied solely on strength to survive. Jalen scanned the terrain quickly, calculating angles, distances, and obstacles. He noticed a narrow canyon nearby, walls high and uneven. "The canyon," he said. "If we can lure them there, the terrain will slow them down. Their speed won't help them in tight spaces." Leora nodded. "Good, but they'll anticipate a straight chase. We need a distraction." Jalen grabbed a small debris launcher from the ship's storage, something they had fashioned from salvaged alien tools. He aimed at a cluster of rocks near the canyon entrance and fired. The rocks tumbled, creating a cloud of dust. The creatures paused, confused by the sudden movement, giving the humans the opportunity they needed. The ship roared forward, tilting dangerously as it navigated uneven ground. The creatures followed, but the canyon's walls forced them into single file, reducing their threat. Jalen and Leora moved carefully, using short bursts of propulsion and precise maneuvers to stay ahead. The creature's glowing eyes reflected off the canyon walls, a constant reminder that danger was near. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the hum of the ship and the occasional distant roar. Finally, they emerged on the other side of the canyon, the plains opening up before them. For the first time, they could breathe a little easier. "We made it," Leora said, relief in her voice. "For now," Jalen corrected. "They'll adapt. We need to keep moving, find a place where we can plan our next steps." As they traveled, they came across another remnant of alien technology, a half-buried beacon. Its energy signature was weak but functional. Jalen examined it carefully. "If we can repair this, we might be able to send a signal. Someone might hear us." Leora worked beside him, studying the alien interface. "The system isn't complicated," she said, "but it requires constant attention. We'll have to stay here for a while to stabilize it." Jalen agreed. "We'll set up a temporary camp nearby, but we need to be ready for anything. This planet doesn't forgive mistakes." Over the next few days, they worked tirelessly. They repaired the beacon using parts from the ship and scavenged alien components. The process was slow, painstaking, and filled with trial and error. Leora proved invaluable, noticing subtle patterns and sequences that Jalen would have missed. They learned to anticipate each other's thoughts and actions, a silent communication forming between them. During this time, the planet continued to test them. Storms swept across the plains, forcing them to take shelter. Alien predators stalked the distance, always watching, always waiting. But Jalen and Leora adapted, learning the rhythms of the world, predicting dangers, and turning obstacles into opportunities. One evening, as the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the plains, they finally activated the beacon. A soft pulse of light shot into the sky, a signal of human ingenuity and determination. It was a small victory, but in the vast emptiness of the universe, small victories could mean everything. But triumph was short-lived. The pulse attracted attention beyond what they expected. High above in the planet's orbit, an alien fleet detected the signal. Massive ships, sleek and menacing, moved toward the surface. Jalen's eyes widened as he realized the magnitude of the danger. "They're coming," he said. "We've been noticed." Leora's face was calm but determined. "Then we prepare. We don't run, we survive." Humans were never content with surrender. Even against impossible odds, they adapted, they planned, and they fought with intelligence and courage. Jalen and Leora moved quickly, fortifying their temporary base with alien tech. Shields, barriers, and traps were set. They had no weapons, but they had wit, ingenuity, and the element of surprise. When the fleet arrived, the scale of it was overwhelming. Massive ships descended, scanning the plains, weapons primed. But Jalen and Leora were ready. They lured smaller scout ships into ambushes, using the terrain and the beacon to create false signals. The aliens were powerful, precise, and advanced, but they lacked creativity, a human advantage that was about to turn the tide. Jalen activated one of the ship's energy pulses, sending a shockwave through the ground that destabilized a cluster of boulders. The rocks tumbled, crushing one of the scout ships and forcing others to change course. Leora manipulated the beacon, creating a series of false signals that confused the fleet's sensors. For every move the aliens made, the humans had a counter, simple yet effective. The battle was tense and chaotic. Sparks flew, rocks tumbled, and energy pulses lit the night. Jalen and Leora worked as a single unit, anticipating each other's actions, responding to dangers before they fully materialized. They were not just surviving, they were asserting themselves, proving that even in a universe dominated by superior technology, human creativity and courage could not be underestimated. Hours passed, and slowly the alien fleet began to retreat, unable to adapt to the humans' unpredictable tactics. Jalen and Leora watched as the massive ships withdrew into the sky, leaving the plains silent once more. They had won, but only just. The planet was still dangerous, still alive, and still full of challenges. Exhausted but unbroken, they returned to their temporary base. Jalen looked at Leora, seeing the determination in her eyes. "We survived another day," he said, a small smile forming. "And we'll survive the next," she replied. "Humans always do." As the twin suns rose again, casting light across the alien landscape, they began to plan their next steps. The ship was partially functional, the beacon was operational, and they had each other. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and dangerous, but they were humans. They would adapt, endure, and overcome. Together, they had faced impossible odds and survived. And together, they would face whatever came next, proving that humanity, with courage, ingenuity, and determination, could triumph even in the most hostile corners of the galaxy. The stars above were distant and indifferent, but on the plains below, two humans moved forward, unbroken and undefeated. The impossible was still ahead, but for now, they had shown the universe what humans could do. And for Jalen Kor and Princess Leora, that was enough. The alien fleet loomed over the horizon, massive shadows cutting across the green sky. Jalen Kor tightened his grip on the ship's controls, every muscle in his body tense. Beside him, Princess Leora studied the panels, her eyes sharp, her mind working faster than the blinking lights in front of her. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in every conventional way. But they were humans, and humans never gave up. "We don't have to fight them head-on," Jalen said, his voice low but firm. "We need to be smarter, faster, unpredictable." Leora nodded, her hands moving over the alien interface. "Then let's use what they don't expect. Terrain, the ship, the beacon, us." The plan was risky. They would lure the fleet into a trap using the canyon system they had discovered earlier. The narrow passages, jagged rocks, and unpredictable terrain could slow the aliens, making their precision useless. Jalen and Leora worked quickly, moving the ship to a higher vantage point where they could observe the enemy's movements. Outside, the fleet began to descend, scanning the plains with energy pulses that could detect even minor movement. Jalen activated a series of holographic decoys he had fashioned from the ship's remaining systems. They shimmered and moved like real humans, giving the illusion that multiple ships were positioned across the plains. The alien commanders hesitated. Their sensors detected life, but the readings were scattered, chaotic. Jalen smiled faintly. Humans thrived in chaos, aliens did not. "Now," he whispered. Leora triggered the beacon, sending a pulse that created interference in the fleet's communication channels. Orders became delayed, repeated, or scrambled entirely. The aliens were powerful, precise, and advanced, but they had never encountered humans who could improvise under pressure with such speed. The first wave of alien scouts approached the canyon. Jalen and Leora watched carefully, waiting for the right moment. The scouts were fast, but the canyon was narrow. The decoys lured them into the center, where Jalen had planted energy traps. When the creatures passed, a pulse of energy surged from the ground, knocking them off balance and creating panic among the fleet. Leora's fingers flew over the controls, adjusting shields, redirecting energy pulses, and sending false signals to the remaining ships. "They're confused," she said, eyes wide with determination. "Keep them moving." Jalen guided the ship down a narrow path, dodging falling rocks and debris. The aliens tried to follow, but the terrain worked against them. One of the larger ships struck a cliffside, sparking and toppling into a ravine. Another was forced to retreat after hitting a hidden energy trap Jalen had improvised. Every move they made was calculated, using human ingenuity and quick thinking to turn the environment into an ally. Hours passed in tense chaos. The alien fleet adapted slowly, but every move they made played into the humans' hands. Jalen and Leora coordinated silently, reading each other's thoughts and predicting actions before they happened. Humans had a gift the aliens lacked: adaptability, creativity, and courage that thrived in impossible situations. Finally, the bulk of the fleet reached the canyon's narrowest point. Jalen held his breath. This was their chance. Using the ship's limited propulsion, he nudged massive boulders they had previously destabilized. Rocks tumbled down the cliffs, blocking the narrow passages and trapping the alien ships. The fleet was cut off, unable to advance or retreat. Leora activated the final sequence on the beacon. A powerful pulse of energy surged into the trapped ships, temporarily disabling their systems. Sparks flew, engines groaned, and the alien crews struggled to regain control. For the first time, the humans were in command of the battlefield, their ingenuity giving them an edge no weapon could provide. Jalen exhaled slowly. "It's working. They can't adapt fast enough." But the victory was not without risk. The alien fleet's flagship remained operational, hovering above the canyon with weapons locked on their position. One blast could destroy everything they had built. Leora studied the controls, eyes scanning patterns. "We can't fight it head-on," she said. "But we can make them underestimate us." She guided Jalen to activate a series of holographic decoys, projecting multiple ships at once. The flagship's sensors were overwhelmed, unable to distinguish reality from illusion. Using this moment of confusion, Jalen piloted the ship closer, aiming for a weak point he had noticed in the alien design. A precise pulse from the ship's energy system struck the flagship's hull. Sparks flew, engines faltered, and for a moment the massive vessel wobbled in the sky. The alien commanders were stunned, their calculated precision thrown into chaos. Leora smiled faintly. "They didn't expect humans to think like this." Jalen nodded. "They still don't. And that's our advantage." The next few hours were a blur of strategy, improvisation, and careful action. Jalen and Leora used the canyon, the decoys, and the energy traps to isolate and disable the remaining ships. Each move was precise, relying on speed, intelligence, and adaptability. The aliens were powerful, but they were not prepared for humans who refused to follow rules, who used unpredictability as a weapon. By nightfall, the alien fleet had retreated, badly damaged and humiliated. The plains were silent once more, the green sky reflecting the dim light of the twin suns. Jalen and Leora surveyed the battlefield, exhausted but triumphant. "We did it," Leora said softly, almost in disbelief. "We actually did it." Jalen looked at her, pride swelling in his chest. "We survived the impossible, together." The canyon below bore the scars of their struggle, toppled boulders, energy scars, and the remnants of alien ships. But it also bore proof of human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. They had faced impossible odds, and they had won without relying on brute force. Every decision, every improvisation, every small act of creativity had turned the tide. As they returned to their ship, they began to plan the next step. The planet was still dangerous, but the alien fleet had retreated, giving them a window of opportunity. Jalen activated the ship's navigation systems, plotting a course toward the nearest star system that might offer help or resources. Leora assisted, her sharp mind translating the alien coordinates into usable data. They were far from home, far from Earth, but they were not defeated. Humans had survived impossible situations before, and they would do it again. The universe was vast, filled with dangers they could not yet imagine, but they had proven that courage, ingenuity, and determination could overcome even the most advanced threats. As the ship lifted from the plains, gliding smoothly over the jagged terrain, Jalen and Leora sat side by side, watching the alien world shrink beneath them. The windless sky stretched endlessly, filled with stars that seemed distant and cold, yet full of possibility. "Do you think anyone will hear our signal?" Leora asked, eyes on the distant horizon. "They will," Jalen said confidently. "It's only a matter of time, and even if not, we have ourselves. That's enough for now." They shared a quiet moment, the exhaustion of battle giving way to relief and hope. Humans had a way of surviving, even in situations that seemed hopeless. It was not technology, strength, or even luck that saved them. It was their minds, their courage, and their refusal to surrender. Hours later, as the twin suns rose again on the alien horizon, the humans found a small planet in the distance that appeared habitable. Jalen adjusted the ship's course, steering toward it with precision. Leora monitored the energy systems, ensuring the vessel could sustain them through the journey. "Another challenge," she said with a faint grin. "And we'll meet it," Jalen replied, "like we always do." The ship moved forward, gliding through the alien sky, leaving behind the world that had tested them to the limits of endurance and ingenuity. They had survived storms, predators, and an advanced alien fleet. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. And though the universe was still vast and full of unknown dangers, Jalen and Leora knew one thing with certainty: humans would endure. They would adapt, they would survive, and they would triumph. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, two humans moved together, fearless and determined, a testament to the strength of humanity. They had survived the impossible, and nothing in the galaxy could take that from them. The alien world faded behind them, but the memory of the trials remained, a reminder of what humans could achieve, even against impossible odds. And as they approached the new planet, ready to explore, survive, and continue their journey, they carried with them the unshakable belief that no matter the universe, no matter the enemy, humans could triumph. For Jalen Kor and Princess Leora, the impossible was no longer a limit. It was a challenge, one they had conquered together. And so, humanity proved once again that courage, intelligence, and determination were stronger than fear, stronger than any enemy, and stronger than the vastness of space itself. The human survived the impossible, with only the princess by his side,